Hey everyone, Ryan Young, Kama Jiu-Jitsu. Hope you're doing well. You know, a while ago I did a video on why people quit Jiu-Jitsu, and one of the reasons was I don't have enough money. And every once in a while I'll see a comment come up on that video telling me basically that Jiu-Jitsu is expensive, which it can be. It's not always. And it depends what expensive is, right? It's expensive in that, some people like me just don't understand, right? What it's like to not have enough money or something. It's some ridiculous stuff like that. And I say ridiculous because if I think of my background, I didn't grow up with money, right? My dad had money, but my parents were divorced. And so I lived with my mom. I grew up with my mom. My mom never made more than $25,000 or $30,000 a year. She worked clerical work, like bookkeeper type thing, and she had to raise a son. So she and I would live on our own. We didn't really. Every once in a while, we had to live with my grandparents and all that. When my mom would run out of money, we did live in a housing project in Honolulu called Red Hill for a period of time, but we kind of bounced around. And the only real steady thing in my life was, number one, my mom. I was lucky that I didn't have to deal with a stepfather. It was just my mom and I. But I never starved. She never got on welfare, but we did briefly live in the housing projects. But I couldn't get a lot of stuff. I'm going to go into more of this in another video, but about the mindset that you need to have. But I brought this up because a couple of people who got in contact with me recently, who joined up, the first thing they said, people ask, what's the price? And I give them the price of our tuition here. And we're not the most expensive, but we're not the cheapest either. They say, it's too expensive for me. And I asked them, I go, well, what exactly are you looking for? These people, they do their research. A lot of you do your research on what you want to train in before you go to a school, before you approach a school. And sometimes you find out after you've been at a school for a while that maybe this isn't for me. I need to find something else. You do your research. You reach out to somebody like me if I'm in your area, and then say, well, this is what I want, and you come and try a class or two out. This is perfect. This is exactly what I'm looking for. But the cost, it's prohibitively expensive. In a person's case. Here's my thought on it. If I'm looking at of something I want to get, but it costs me $75 a month more than what I'm paying now, I might be running my budget on a razor thin margin where I don't have very much in the way of flexibility. You have two options. Well, actually, I have three. One is you just don't do it. Right? You don't come into our school, for instance, or the school that you're looking for. Number two is you think to yourself, I need to cut my expenses by $75 so I can afford it. The other is I find a way to get another $75 so I can afford it. The mindset you're looking at here is the scarcity mindset versus the abundance mindset. I'll give you an example. How do people amass $1 billion? Well, I don't know, because I don't have $1 billion, so I've still yet to figure that out. But let's say you have somebody who has a net worth of 6 digits. How do they get to that point versus somebody who doesn't? If you've never gotten to having a positive net worth, you're always in debt, you're always putting things on credit card, you're always spending, you always have no money in your pocket. You don't know what it's like to have money in your pocket. On the other hand, somebody who does have money in their pocket, they will always have money in their pocket. Right? There's a saying that goes that if you were to take all the money that the wealthiest people have, give it to the masses that are poor, then within 5 years, all the money that the poor had will be right back in the hands of the people who once had it. Once you develop how to do something, then you can do it all the time. And it's not just a case with money. It has to do with anything in life, right? If you do it once, you're unfamiliar with it. But once you did it once, then you did it once, you can do it again. So if you've earned $1 million once, you'll be able to do it again. Even if the powers that be were to take all the money away from you, you'd know how to get it back. For those who have come to me and tell me you're too expensive by this amount because I can't afford it, then my thing back to you is, what ways, given your life knowledge and your expertise, can you earn that extra $75? Instead of give up on coming to train at a place like ours. Instead of being one of the charity cases that we do have. We do have them. You know, you just want to come in and be like everybody else. How do you do it? I don't know. I mean, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, if you have a car, you know, and you drive to and from work, I actually have a friend, and what he does is he'll turn on the Uber or the Lyft app, and he'll just go find a ride that he can pick up that's going in the direction of his house, coming home from work. So it's almost like his commute home is being paid for by someone else. Same thing with leaving. When he heads out in the morning, maybe leaves half an hour earlier, opens the app and sees that there's anybody going in the direction that he's going to work, goes to pick him up, drops him off, and then goes off to work. I don't know how much money that'll make, but if you do that 5 days a week, you'd think that would make you $75, right? It's not going to cost you that much more because it's on your way to and from, right? That's one way to do it. For me, I'll just teach another private. I mean, that's something that I can do. You know, a lot of you, you know, most of you who watch the channel are not, you know, black belts who teach or whatever. But when I was living in California and I was getting my reps in teaching, I would just put a Craigslist ad out, and I got, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 students that way, teaching privates as a brown belt. I didn't charge all that much because I was still kind of, in my mind, I'm thinking I still have to learn how to teach. And, you know, I was at Dave's school, and actually I was teaching some before I was at Dave's school, and I was teaching more while I was at Dave's school. So for me, it was still a learning process. I didn't really quite have the finished product ready to go yet, but people were paying me for my time and, you know, to bust me up in my garage, but that was a little bit extra money. So for me, I don't really worry about money. And it's not because I'm wealthy, it's because I don't worry about money. You know, it's not really anything. And if you kind of look at it in jiu-jitsu terms, if you think of everything you do in jiu-jitsu, your level of success, and you just simply throw it into money terms, you could do that as well. As an example, when somebody mounts me, am I thinking to myself, oh crap, I'm not getting out, right? I'm thinking, this might be a pretty good mount. Okay, instead of me getting out 5 seconds, it might take me a little bit longer. And I just do what I need to do to get out, right? So you come up to something you want to buy and it costs X amount, and you go, man, I don't have that amount. Well, it's going to take a little longer. Instead of me getting tomorrow, I may need to get it at the end of the month. What do I need to do between now and then to get it, right? It's all a mindset, right? You watch, those of you who have watched the videos that we have on our channel, you notice that, number one, we don't teach technique on our video. So what do we do 250 videos on? A lot of it is a history, which is unrelated to this video, but a lot of it has to do with how do you need to think to become successful in jiu-jitsu. Well, one of the things to be successful in jiu-jitsu is to get into jiu-jitsu in the first place. And once you get in and you realize, wait a minute, there are actually different types of jiu-jitsu. Oh, I need to try a different type. Well, just as easily as you can go to one type to one type to another type and realize it's more expensive, it can go the other way and realize, oh, it's actually cheaper doing the jiu-jitsu I really want to do. What makes jiu-jitsu cheaper or more expensive? A lot of it just has to do with who the teacher is, right? Some teachers just simply cost more, right? It could be the amount of jiu-jitsu that's available in your area. It could be the area you live in. So for instance, you could live in an area where the cost of running a business is very high. So guess what? The cost of jiu-jitsu is going to be pretty high there. Or it could be in an area where there's very little jiu-jitsu. So then it would be high. Or you could be in a place like Southern California where there's jiu-jitsu around every single corner. So even though it is expensive to conduct business there, you're going to find a lot of places to train for not that much money because of the supply of jiu-jitsu in that area. You just have to kind of put it all together and realize I am where I am, and I just have to kind of deal with things the best that I can. So if you find that you want something and it costs more, it's easier to earn a little bit more money than it is to cut expenses, because what if you're already cut down as much as you can, right? When I first moved to California, I made $2,000 a month for both my wife and I. You know, she worked part-time, but she was going to school. I literally cashed every paycheck that I got, and I put it together in envelopes, and each envelope has a category of what I could spend on, for food, for gas, for whatever, right? And my budget was tight. So what I had to do was to go and train, to get an extra day of training at the Gracie Academy in Torrance. I actually talked to Master Fabio Santos. He wasn't a master, he was Professor Fabio then. And I just said, hey, this is my situation. What can I do? Well, he made me work in the studio because he could do that. He had that ability. But I asked and I did, what can I do to go from training twice a week to 3 times a week? Because monetarily, I didn't have it, right? And I was working a full-time job, and I didn't have, at that time, the ability to just turn on an Uber app and earn a few more bucks that way, because this is back in 1992. So, but I could have easily picked up side jobs here and there. I could have easily gotten a part-time job, working some nighttime hours. It just comes down to how badly do you want it. And if Master Fabio didn't give me that option about being able to work on Saturdays at the studio teaching, helping him teach the beginner class, so therefore I could stay the rest of the day and train, then I would have had to figure something else out. I've worked my entire life, and I've worked sometimes 2 jobs during college. So working, I was not a stranger to working. So whatever free time I had, I could easily just go get another job. So for those of you who may want to train and feel that you can't afford it, just change your way of thinking. And for those of you that are still of that mindset that, I don't know what I'm talking about, or I don't know your situation, you're right, I don't know your situation. But really, it doesn't matter. It's just you. If that's your mentality, that's your mentality. If you got the poor mentality, you got the poor mentality. There's nothing I can do there. Anyway, that's all I got for you. I hope this helps you guys kind of put things in perspective. But realize that you can even move things around. So a friend of mine, I was talking to him about it, and he says, and he charges more than I do. And I said, wow, this is years ago. And I said, wow, how do you charge that much? And he says, it's what I want, right? If I'm going to be teaching a certain person, this is the number that I need to be able to teach that person and want to do it. And that's another thing too. That's what it was for him. For him to want it, if he let you in for less, he would be like, I don't really want to teach that person. He wasn't incentivized. That's the way he thought. And I said, isn't that kind of a lot of money to charge? And his answer to me was, what's too expensive? And I go, I don't know. What do you mean? He goes, what's too expensive to you is not the same as what's too expensive for me or for him or for her. Everybody has a different scale on what's expensive, right? For somebody buying a car, somebody might say, I'm just going to buy a Honda Accord, right? I just need a full-size 4-door sedan. That's what I'm going to buy. Another person will go, and that person who buys the Accord will say, I would never buy a Lexus because that's just too expensive. On the other hand, somebody, Lexus sells a lot of cars, which means that it's not expensive for a lot of other people. It's not too expensive. If Lexus were to come into the automobile market saying, the Honda's the number 1 selling car in the world, there's no way I can sell this $50,000 luxury car. Right? If they thought like that, then there'd be no Lexuses for people to drive, but they just came into the market. Same thing with what this friend of mine was telling me about his school. And another thing too, he says, let's say his rate was $250 a month, which I think it was. And I told him, man, that's crazy. You're crazy if you're gonna get that. He goes, well, somebody walks into my studio and they tell me I can't afford that. He goes, and I see they've got the latest iPhone. He goes, they can afford it. Or they're wearing really, really nice, expensive clothes. They can afford it. With him, it's just priorities. What do you want to spend your money on? Somebody may say, I may spend $100,000 on a car, but I'm not going to spend more than $100 a month on Jiu-Jitsu. They can afford more, they just don't want to. Think about what's important to you. If Jiu-Jitsu is important to you, then you're going to do what you got to do to afford it. If you're not willing to spend more than a few bucks to go to the school that you want to go to, then that's not really the school you want to go to, because if you really want something, there's nothing that will stop you from getting it. Really, think about it, right? And that's the same with me too. If I want something, I will do what I need to do to get it. Anyway, that's all I got for you. I hope that helped. Comment below. Oh, be sure to like and subscribe too if you want to help the channel, because that does help with the algorithms and stuff. And also share this video too, or share any of our other videos. And also know that I will be heading down to South Texas, or the southern part of Texas, south of Dallas. The spring break, which is for me, which would be the week of the 6th, March 6th through I think the 14th. So I'll be looking to head to San Antonio, College Station, Austin, and or Houston. So if you want me to stop by, do a little mini seminar in your school, let me know. Get in touch with me, KAATARO@gmail.com, KAATARO@gmail.com, and we will get it set up. Take care. Happy trading. Bye now.